Hello, my name is Erdem Topsakal. I'm the editor-in-chief of IEEE Antennas and Propagation Digital Communications. We are in London today at Queen Mary University with Professor Yang Hao. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you, Erdem.
Okay, well, I'd like to start with about your background. And if you can tell us, our viewers, what made you get into engineering and finally, in academia?
Thank you. When I was young, I recall my father used to buy a lot of books for me to read. And so the topic is very broad, and it covers literature magazines to science magazines and so on. So I have a very broad interest when I was very young. In fact, STEM was not my first choice. I wanted to become a writer. But my father, being a mathematician, he didn't like the idea. So he really wanted me to get into a STEM subject. So in a sense, I was persuaded by my father to study STEM, and I got into uni, and I chose electronic engineering. Was not my first choice. I wanted to do computer science, and but for some reason I got admitted to electronic engineering. But luckily, and when I started the journey, I really liked the aspect of studying electronic engineering, because there are so many things fascinating. The fundamentals of semiconductors, the computing systems, and then it's really the major building block, and for us to take those innovation forward and changing our world. So how I get into the academia, again, after PhD, I had a choice whether or not I should go to company or work in university. I felt, this being creative and being free thinking, those kind of characters and natures coming into my mind, and then I thought, one thing's maybe coming to university that give me a freedom to do whatever I want to do, and more innovative ideas, and that's how I studied in university. But having said that, I've been working a lot with the industry, collaborating with them, creating, a lot of joint projects. And most importantly, actually, I co-founded a company by myself. It's called Isotropic Systems. So we took the idea of fundamental research of transmission optics, lens antennas, into the application of antennas for satellite on the move applications. So, yeah, in general, I feel STEM subject it's very exciting. So I was very grateful. My father told me, and this is a good subject to start.
Great. Second, I'd like to ask you about you have been at Queen Mary University, based on our discussion in the past, almost over 20 years. And, I know that, based on my academic career, we do many different things, research subjects and all that. I know that actually you're internationally well known in many of these research areas, but one of the probably is dear to my own heart is the medical applications. And then I know that your famous book on antennas and propagation for body-centric wireless communications. Can you tell us a little bit about, summarize, all these research areas, how you started and where they are right now, not just only medical applications, but I know that, you are also involved in, some other European Union funded projects and whatnot.
Thank you. I want to talk a little bit more the background story of this research. And when I was working as a postdoc under Professor Peter Hall at the University of Birmingham, and we were looking into a very interesting problem. and on how to design wireless-based wearable computers. So effectively, the concept was, can you take apart the conventional computer like this, and with display like glasses you can wear, and keyboard just like a watch you can tap in, and
of course you're talking about what year is that?
That was back in 1998.
So before even many of the electronics that we know currently, they did not even exist.
Yes, indeed. And so the question was, how are you going to get rid of the cables, and how are you going to use a wireless signal to enable those broadband data communication? It was actually a hard problem, and particularly, as you said, there was no demand at that time. I remember I went to a conference, and one gentleman gave a presentation, and on a single slide, and there was no other information, just a wearable computer is dead. And that was very depressing. But having said that, we know there is a huge potential here for wearable systems, for body-centric wireless communications. So we started, we carried on, luckily with funding from UK Research Council and so on. So the fundamental problem is how we're going to understand the radio propagation around and on the body, or even inside the body, because we know body is hostile environment for electromagnetic waves. And how are we going to design an efficient antenna to excite those waves, and try to understand what are the propagation mechanisms of those waves, whether there's a space wave propagation, creeping wave, or surface wave. How are we going to launch them? How are we going to receive them? So it took a good 10 years or so, with the 3 consecutive research funded projects from EPSRC. So we worked together with Peter Hall. I'm very grateful, for being, with Peter on this journey. He was such a good mentor and also a good friend. So along the way, and we solved some problem. We saw, we leave it to company to take it over and to develop product. And yes, they did. But to my surprise, they're still coming back to try to ask us to solve, the problems we thought we tackled many years ago, but more into a new application domain. For example, companies come to talk to us saying, look, how are we going to solve the propagation problems when, people try to swim in a swimming pool? And how are we going to solve the problem, like the area you're working on to detect glucose, right? And how are you going to solve those shadowing issues and for AR, VR devices, and for wireless headphones and so on. So we still working with them. And one of the interesting aspects is how we're going to develop new materials to enable those innovations. So that's including flexible, reconfigurable, and 2D graphene optically transparent antennas. So yeah, the innovation is still going on, and I'm glad we are still carry on with this journey. The other things I want to say is we know now materials is getting very important and for antenna innovation, and a lot of those materials does not exist in nature. So that's why for the last 15 years or so, I got into this new area about metamaterials. How are we going to design those materials with a unique property to enhance antenna performance? I think that's going very well, and so things now moving along, and I mentioned about the companies we set up, and they are doing very well, hiring more than 100 people now. And but most important thing is what's next, right? So just give you example, a lot of people working on metal surfaces, and particularly working into intelligent metal surfaces, and where you can reconfigure these surfaces to, dynamically control the internal radiation and the reflection, and so on. But key issue here is how are we going to find those materials to enable those reconfigurability? So in old days, people using, say, semiconductor devices, 3-5 semiconductors, pin diodes, varactors, to design those kind of systems. But to scale this up to high frequency is difficult. And those devices, they don't exist, or they're too lossy, or they are very expensive, right? So finding new materials to replace those 3-5 semiconductor materials is quite important. So we started a journey now, which is, I feel is quite interesting. We started a new journey, try to find and research those new materials, reconfigurable materials. This including phase-changing materials like VO2, GET, GST, and so on. And also ferroelectric materials, those permittivity value can be changed by just simply apply the electric voltage. One of the great things when you look into those materials and working with people from other disciplines, such as the material science, you realize that a lot of things you can do differently. So when you're working with the material chemists, and they always like to try and error. They go to lab, try different materials they're putting together, and with hope one new material can be discovered maybe in a few years. But now with machine learning, with big data, and the less exciting subject area people have created is called the materials project or material informatics. It's effectively saying, look, can we harvest information from the larger data which is already existing, and to explore the even bigger the chemical space which is originated from the periodic table. just try to search all those new materials, and then hopefully you find that quickly. One thing we did is working with a brilliant PhD student, his name is Harvey, is effectively we find a way to link the chemical presentation of those material, the chemical formulas, with the actual crystal structures, and by using graph neural network. So the challenge was effectively saying, look, in order to get those crystal structure of material, you have to fabricate them. And then, fabricating those materials is time consuming. Our question is, can you derive those material crystal structure just simply from those chemical representation of those materials? In fact, using existing database, using graph neural network, we can find the hidden link between the chemical formulas and physical crystal structures. So once you've done that, and you could use the modeling tools and try to find a new material properties, including reconfigurability. So along the way, we did that work. We published a few papers just recently. And then you asked me about what we're doing now. Actually, we want to take this further. Mm-hmm. Because with machine learning now, you can find materials very quickly, maybe 50 in a few weeks. But how are you going to prove it? How are you going to make them synthesizable? How are you going to make them, how are you going to do that with the highest throughput? Mm-hmm. So with one student, and her name is Komojan, and she's a brilliant, robotic engineer. So what she's doing is to use robotics to control the research lab and experiments. So effectively, the robotic system she developed can mix those different materials all together. Take the product into the furnace and sinter it, and using automated electromagnetic measurement tools to measure those material properties. So this is creating almost a closed loop and material discovery using desktop-based robotic automation. And that actually worked pretty well. Instead of finding a new material in a couple of years, now you can actually find a new material in maybe a few days, and using those high throughput design, characterization, and fabrication. So this is what I'm doing. So all our projects are funded by UK research agency, governments, and some of them from the industry. And there was a very broad and projects, and including European Union as well.
Exciting, very exciting. Well, my next question is about your involvement in Antennas and Propagation Society.
Thank you.
You have heavily been involved in the society, taking roles in, different, committees, and now you're part of AdCom, and you're the, editor-in-chief of the entire publications. So can you tell us a little bit about how APS, Antennas and Propagation Society, played a role in your career, and how are you involved in, some of the activities, and, what brought you to your current role?
Thank you.
Right now?
Thank you. I recall my first APS conference was in Montreal, 1997. That's how I got into the society. Of course, I regularly attended the conference until being asked to serve for AWPL, Antennas Wireless Propagation Letter, as an associate editor. And a few years later, I was honored to become editor-in-chief. And and a few years later, I got elected into the AdCom, and I have been asked to be in charge of publications. Now we're working together for the publications committee. So I think the journey it's very exciting, and also it's a journey of appreciation as well. I feel the society has done a lot to me, and it's time for me to return the favor to the society, and by helping them, volunteering for improving and progressing the society. So there are several initiatives we are doing, and on one hand, with a great effort from all the EICs and editorial boards, and our flagship journals are doing very well. Transactions on Antennas Propagation, Antennas Magazine, and also AWPL we just mentioned. We also have broadened our scope, by collaborating with other sister societies such as MTT, EMTS, and so on. So we created a lot of new journals. That's including the multi-scale modeling journals, MMCT, and also the GERM, the Journal of Electromagnetic for Biomedical Applications. So those are the new initiatives. So we're also working with some exciting topics, including quantum technologies and radar systems. So this is a very broad publication portfolios we have now, and build upon that, and particularly in recent days, we are thinking to have a new journal initiative that's potentially under the name of a journal of selected topics on electromagnetics, antennas, and propagation. So the vision for that is basically we're going to reach out to even broader societies and for example, the ComSoc and the society for many reasons. And first of all, this is a larger society and particularly devote themselves into wireless communications. Secondly, the topic of wireless communications is becoming very exciting, and it's a booming not just in an academic community but also in the industry. I'm excited that the journal going to becoming very popular, and hopefully instead of we just publishing the academic paper, but in this journal we're going to publish a lot of futuristic perspectives and give people a kind of inspiration, what the future would like, and particularly around the antennas and propagation.
I mean, while you were talking about it, I would like to also mention that under your leadership, the impact factor, with the help of course, editor-in-chief of different journals, substantially increased. So I think it's important that we also, mention that so that the viewers are aware of that.
Yes, and this is we are now into a very very nice ecosystem now. While our reputation of the journal is improving, we got more and more authors. We're attracting them a lot and contributing their work into this journal. So I believe in the next few years, and this topic would remain to be very attractive, and this is good news, and not just for people currently working on antennas and propagation, but potentially for the future students. And then they will feel more confident and to move into this area.
Great. Well, and my last question is about your advice for our viewers. Most of them are students, undergraduate students, maybe graduate students, maybe students thinking about going into grad school, and maybe young professionals just graduated with a bachelor's degree. They are thinking about what they want to do in the future and whatnot. And you've been on different sides of academia. You've been academia. You started companies and whatnot. So what would be your advice to our viewers?
Sure. Thank you, Adam. I think I have three advices and for our future, for young students and the future antenna propagation researchers. And the first, I just want to say, despite the fact antennas and the propagation is more than 100 years old, but this is the technology underpinning are the key systems, and also underpinning the future applications, ranging from communications to biomed to even quantum systems. So it's very important and to have young talented people and working in this area to help our society. The second thing I want to say to our students is always pay attention to those fundamentals and electromagnetics and Maxwell equations. So those are the key framework and for antennas and propagation. So learning those topics well and would help you to to solve the problems and not just using computational tools, but also from theoretical and analytical point of views. The third thing is effectively saying, look, we need to be aware of other topics. Particular topics I already mentioned about AI and machine learning. So this will be part of our life, and we will need to be fully aware how those technology going to have an impact on antennas and propagation research. And quantum technology is the same. And by the time, maybe in the next 20, 30 years, quantum computing will be replacing our current digital computing system. How does that affect on computational electromagnetics? So that's going to be becoming exciting. There is another things maybe we need to also keep in mind is how we're going to tackle our research and on a more responsible manner, and particularly thinking about climate change, sustainability, and net zero, and so on. So, IEEE has a key mission is really advance the humanity. I think this is something we need to keep it in our mind. Perhaps one other thing I needed to add, we touched upon, always keep that in your mind is doing research it's important, but also, take your research ideas and the research results into commercial applications is very important. And spinning out a company will be an exciting journey. It will be hard to start with, but you will benefit a lot, and you will contribute a lot to the society by creating more jobs and generating the revenue and so on. So what I want to say is that the future is bright, and I hope there are more and more students come to work with us, study with us.
Well, thank you so much. Great advice. I really enjoyed, our discussion here. Thanks again for hosting us.
Thank you, Adam, for visiting.
Well, that's wraps up our interview with Professor Hao. And if you'd like to learn more about his research activities, what's going on in his lab, please, visit his website, university website. And of course, his research papers can be found online if you'd like to read more about it. And until next time, stay happy, stay healthy.